Alright guys, here's that 9mm PDX-1 bullet we fired through the watermelon. I actually couldn't find it. Both those watermelons were similar in length, just a hair over 15 inches long. And I couldn't find this bullet. After looking a little bit, came back and looked at the tape, and I actually saw it bounce off the book backstop and kind of saw what direction it went and was able to go up and find it. Good expansion, and kind of as I think probably most of us expected, the 45 seemed to do a little bit more damage to that watermelon. However, our 9mm did quite well as well. So where does this put us with the 45 and the 9? Well, kind of from our little impromptu testing, what we found out is the 9 definitely does not expand out as big as the 45, if it does expand, but quite large enough, I think, to do plenty of damage. On our brick or cylinder block testing, one thing I had noticed when I looked back at the film is the 45 actually had a couple shots that kind of glanced off that brick and didn't break it, even though it kind of shattered it in half on the first shot. With the 9, we didn't bust through that thing on the first shot, but the subsequent shots did break the actual brick. So what does that tell you? Well, I think it doesn't really tell me a whole lot. is basically it. It tells me that, hey, they're probably pretty similar, and I think that's really, you know, what I have noticed from the test is, yeah, there's a slight more amount of energy transferred to the target with the 45 if the bullet expands, but overall, I mean, it's really just kind of a wash. I think they both kind of equate similar in the tests we did, which were just not really that scientific, but just kind of something to look at and get kind of an impression of how these guns perform. You know, I think the biggest difference comes down to magazine capacity. And with the 9, we just have so much more magazine capacity in most normal designs. Now, of course, we could roll in you know, an H&K 45, and what does that thing hold, like 14 rounds? Well, now we're kind of getting into that realm of, hey, you know, we're probably better off to go with that, assuming we're not having to pack the ammo for it. And, I mean, it makes sense, right? It might have a little bit of the edge in stopping power, or I don't really like that term, but or knockdown power, either one. But it seems to penetrate enough, and even if it doesn't expand, you still have a 45 caliber slug that you're throwing. Now, what if the 9 doesn't expand? Well, we know that the 9 FMJ doesn't work that well, but unlike most popular opinion of the 1911 guys, the 230 grain hardball doesn't really do that great, in my opinion, of stopping things. You know, I watched a program on the Sportsman's channel the other day, and of course, since it's the 100-year anniversary of the 1911, everybody is like gaga for the 1911, and it's all of a sudden the best gun ever devised, and we hear these like ridiculous stories about how it's so much better than anything else out there. And you know, I agree, it's a cool design, and for its time, it was really ahead of its time. You know, a friend of mine calls the 1911 basically the Harley-Davidson of guns, and I would totally agree with that. You know, yesterday's technology at tomorrow's prices, and that's what it is. There's a lot of cool things that you can do with the 1911, and because it is a single action, short trigger, it's easy to shoot this gun well. However, in my opinion, this trigger is way too light for a concealed carry gun. Way too light. You know, I think it's just a liability to carry something like this, in my opinion. Get back to what I was saying, on this program I saw on the Sportsman's channel, you know, this guy was talking about how you could take a 1911 with 230 grain 45 ACP round and hit someone in the finger and spin them around. I'm like, really? Really? Are we still, it's 2011 and we still believe this hokey stuff? And you know, is everybody drinking the Kool-Aid on this, or what? You know, I mean, the 45, yeah, it's bigger, it's slower, it's not going to spin someone around. This is not a portable death ray, you know, because it's a 1911 and because it only has 8 rounds. Well, you don't need any more than that, right? No, that's not the case. We shoot till the target's down. Simple as that. And a 45 will not necessarily knock someone down, nor will the 9. Hornady put out this neat little handout here. I picked it up a while back ago, and I was looking through it, and one thing I noticed is for their 124 grain out of a 4-inch barrel, they did some ballistics gel testing, and you know, what do you know, 11.5 inches of penetration. Looks like we had good expansion, and a decent bullet track path. And then we go over to a 245 230 grain plus P load, and look at that ballistics track. 13.25 inches of penetration, similar cavity size on that load. Here's our 200 grain, which I think is probably the best all-around 45 load. 11.75 inches of penetration. You know, and look at our max to depth cavity, and you know, it looks decent, but does it look that much different than the 124 9mm standard pressure? By the way, if we need more penetration than an 11.5, you know, we can always step up to a 147 grain and get 14 inches of penetration, standard pressure. You know, so what does this tell you? You know, to me, and kind of through my shooting experience, you know, it's kind of a wash. There's no such thing as a one-stop shot. I mean, it can happen if it's a CNS shot, right? But are you going to rely on that? I don't think so. I'm going to shoot like any tactical instructor would tell you. You're going to shoot till the target's down. And in my opinion, a firearm that offers me more rounds that I can get on target, statistically, I'm going to be better off with. And I don't think the 9 is a slouch in that it has less than adequate penetration, expansion, and the dreaded knockdown factor. You know, I think there's a lot of hokiness on the internet and a lot of kind of debate back and forth, and you know, a lot of it's just between people that they just got their first gun yesterday, and now they think this is the best and nothing beats it. I don't necessarily agree. I think, you know, both are effective, and it all depends on how well you shoot it and how often you shoot it. You know, someone that's really skilled with the 1911 can do great with it. You know, they can do great. However, if you're running something like this Taurus, a Beretta, whatever, and you know your skills with it and can shoot it well, guess what? You know, you've got one less reload to do the same amount of work. And to me, that just makes sense. Anyways, it's kind of long-winded. I don't know. Let me know what you guys think. I kind of debated on whether to do this video or not because it's kind of a rant. It's a lot of opinion, but I think it's true. You know, 45 versus 9, which one am I taking? Well, it depends on who's carrying my ammo. If I'm carrying it, I'm packing this dude right here or something along this line. Or actually, how about a Glock 26? See you guys later.